Hello everyone, today I am going to discuss about how components interact with each other. This is a very important topic. I need your full concentration till end of this video. As I have already mentioned in the architecture video that components are actually representing the capabilities of Angular project, and all the components together are creating one by one the modules which are the feature of the project. So if you think one feature, and you can think, okay, inside a feature there will be so many different independent components which needed to be like communicating and acting together, and then only the feature will come, right? So it is very important that each of the component, if required, need to communicate with other components. And now this is the case. Like, how many different ways you can think a component communicate with the other component? Okay, there are 7 ways. I'm going to discuss each of them in this video with the coding part, with the coding example, and also with the explanation, because you need to know like which way is better for which task. There are several ways, but which way is particularly advantageous for this particular situation and which is the advantageous for other particular situation, that understanding is the real important thing to have, because we have so many options. Now we need to have the correct mind to use it. For that, please do watch this video from start to end and don't skip anything, and let's jump into the explanation and coding. Yeah. So before jumping into the broader level of discussion and coding session, let's understand what are the menu items. First, we can pass data from parent to child using input binding. We can intercept input property 2 ways, using setter or using ngOnChanges. We can listen from parent for child event. We can interact with child via local variable from parent. We can call ngViewChild from parent to child. And very important, last but not the least, which is parent and child communicate via service. First, let's understand how we can pass data from parent to child using input binding. Okay, so for covering each of the items, each of the possible way, I will write the code first. I'll fast forward that part, and then after writing that, I'll explain it. In this fast forwarded video, I have created one Angular project. Inside that Angular project, I have created 2 components using ngGenerator. Those 2 components are God as parent and players as children. Using ngGenerator, I have created a model as well, data model, which is called person. I have maintained a folder structure for this project, covering all 7 possible ways of interactions. And for each of the 7 folder, I will create 2 components which will communicate with each other. So the first way I'm going to show you about the communication between 2 components is actually sharing data using data binding from parent to child. So here you can see this is a component, and this is the parent component named God as parent component, and then it is the HTML, the template of the component, and this is the child component, and this is the child component's template, which is the HTML one. So I am going to share data from this parent component to this child component. So here you can see I have created 2 variables. One is parent, which is a string, and the value is God. Another string array variable, which is players, and it will contain the name and age object array of the players. So here you can see the name of the player is, first name of the player is Messi, and the second player is Sachin. So I'm going to share this information and share it to the child component, and from here I'll print the content. Okay, so it is very this method is very simplified ones. Here it is just passing the data and getting fetching the data from the child component part, and it will use that directly. So it is very straightforward. So what it will do, it will take the data using input. Okay, it will take the data using input binding. Okay, and using this input decorator, it will collect the data, and then automatically this variable will be assigned with the whatever data is passed. So to pass the data from parent component to child component, we will use this type of syntax, where the name of the variable what we are gonna use here will be inside the third bracket, and the value will be inside a inside parenthesis. So the value will be collected from the master. Okay, value will be collected from the parent component as the variable name. Okay, here you can see I have looped through the players, and the variable name is player, so that is directly assigned to this parent. So each of the time this child component is loaded, each of the time the child component is loaded into the view, it will get the one string value of the parent, one string value of the child, right? So that actually is represented by input decorator, and then the child is a variable name which is matching with this, and parent is another variable name which is matching with this. So in this way it will be assigned to here. So now okay, so one important part is this is a child component, and this is the child component, and this child component is mentioned here, right? I am using the child component inside the parent component's template, so that's why I could pass the data to the child component's class, and from here it will print the data in the child component's template, right? And the result will look like this. Here I have printed the okay, see this, here I have printed parent's name, okay, and the child's name and its age. So this is going to be called twice, right? Because we have two players, and it will print two lines. So here you can see this is printed, but this is this data is coming from the parent. Okay, this data is coming from the parent, and it is getting printed in the child component. Using datasetter, we can achieve the communication between two components, and for that I have created two components within the withSetter folder. So those two component names are all names as parent and valid names as child. In the second way of creating communication between two components, I am going to pass the data from this master component, which is all names parent, and this is the template of this master component, and the child component called valid names child. So from this component to this component, I am going to share the content. Okay, so you can from here to here. Now thing is that it will pass the value using this mechanism. Okay, this is quite same for the previous one. Only difference here is, as you can see, the way I am receiving the content is different. The way I'm passing the content is bit same, but the way I'm receiving the content is different. Let me explain. So I have taken the simple string array, okay, which is the name of the players in the players variable. Now I'm passing the content as the previous one, just passing looping through the array and then passing the each string content to this name, and each time this child component is loaded into this template, it will pass the player name to this, assign it to the name variable. And now the difference here is like it is going to collect the name variable using the getter setter method. So input decorator has a getter setter method as well, so I have written this get method with the same variable name I am going to print. So this variable name should be matched as the one you are gonna use in the HTML template for this child component. And how I am receiving this, I am collecting this variable which is matching with this. Okay, I am trimming the name, and also if there is no name present, for example this string, there is no text present, right? So what it will do, it will print this no name set. So this will be helpful in a situation where you want to act on the data while you are receiving it. How the acting will be, most probably the validation part. For in this case, the real example is like I am validating, and also I am validating this one as well. It is having some space before Mane's name, and I am trimming that. So this is I am doing while I am receiving the content in the child component. So this way I am validating the content and like acting on top of the content, and then it will be automatically like usable for the template. So this way I am using this second way of communication. You can think of some particular situation where you pass the data, and then from child component you're gonna receive that with some constraint, with some validation from your end. In that case you can use this way. How the result will show, let me show you. Yeah, I have passed 5 string from there, and one string was empty, so it will be changed to no name set. One string with having some space which I don't want to print it here, so it is removed that as well. So if you compare this, then you can see just a second, then you can see, okay, so this is the data, and it is printing, it is receiving the data with some constraint while it is getting from parent component to this component, and while it is printing, that time it is taking care while it has received the content, that time it has taken care of all the validation part. So the data is now as per the child component, right? The third way of communication between two components is ngOnChanges. For that I have created a folder called ngOnChanges. Inside that I have created two components, interactor parent and counter child. So this two component will communicate. So first two way of communication between two components, and this the third one is look like quite a similar approach, but there is something different. The way we are going to use it is very specific. So in this way, if we are achieving the data from parent to child, that means, so we are taking leverages from the onChanges lifecycle hook. There is an interface called onChanges, and it will actually trigger when the specific element of the Angular is changed. So imagine in a situation where your application needs multiple interactions from the user. In a single component, there will be like so many different buttons and interactions, and each of the interactions will be generating some different views, some specific operation in your application. In that case, you can use this ngOnChanges, which is using onChanges lifecycle hook interface. So what it will do, it will collect the data and for each of the changes it will trigger the endpoint into the like child components part. So that will be pretty helpful. So let me give you one example. So in this case I am going to count how many matches, football matches and cricket matches. So you can imagine there will be so many different operations. Just like this 2 matches, there can be like 500 matches, 5,000 matches, I don't know. So whatever it is, there will be those many different way of interactions from parent. So this is two variables I am like updating, which is football match counter and cricket match counter. So and those two methods will be triggered from this to button click. Okay, for this, so this is the parent component, this is the parent component's template. So from this template I am going to interact with this two values, okay, football and cricket. And the similar way I'm passing the variable value to this child component. Now the way I'm receiving the child component, receiving the content from the parent component to this child component is a bit different. Only the receiving part probably. Yes. So how I am receiving it? I am receiving using ngOnChanges, which is I already mentioned part of onChanges lifecycle hook. So what it will do, it will trigger each time you click the button, you change the variable value. This variable value is assigned to this content. This content is assigned to here, the input, and I am running the changes on this particular component. And here I am going to collect all the changes. Okay, I'm collecting the property name. Okay, and right, and also I'm collecting the value. Value means the value here is like football is 0, cricket is 0. Later it will be incremented. Okay, because each time a new game is played, it will be triggered by this button, and then the value will be incremented, and that value will be received in this part. Okay, and it will be assigned to this change log. So how I am assigning to print, I am just assigning to like log kind of situation, like log kind of array. Okay, so here I am just assigning, and then all the changes will be printed. So this changes will be printed using this template HTML. So most important part is how I am receiving the content. So get the code and then understand this part. Okay, if you don't understand, please write down into the comment. I'll make sure that I can explain it in broader way, but I think you will understand by seeing this. So this way of communication between two components, why we need to establish this way of communication when particularly we require to get or interact with the multiple different endpoint, multiple different way of communication from parent to child in a single component. That time this could be the better option to choose. Let me show you the output of this parent to child communication. So this is the output. Here you can see like no football match has been started, no cricket match has been started. Now I am interacting with this parent components HTML, and the print will be coming from the child component, right? So I'm just interacting with the parent components button, and you can see like how many interactions it is handling, and seamlessly it is printing the changes from the child component. So here it is the parent components button, and it is printing the result in the child component, and it is receiving the content from here, okay, to here. The following component interactions will communicate through the mechanism where parent will listen to the events from child component. So there will be some event happening in child component, and parent component can listen to it and then interact and operate on top of that. For that I am going to create a folder called child event, and inside that folder I am going to create two component. One is vote aggregator, another is vote box child. So here the vote aggregator is the parent component which will listen to the vote box child components event. Okay, so let me explain this one. Here the vote aggregator is the parent component, and this one is parent component's HTML. This one is a child component whose name is vote box child. And actually this time it is very interesting. This time the buttons are associated with the child component. So from child component, the button will be triggered and the data will be updated, and that data will be passed through this output decorator, and this value will go here. Okay, and here, and from here this event will be passed to this parent component, and now parent component can interact on the data, okay, on the trigger, and the change the data and show it into the UI. So okay, how this communication is flowing, let me draw it for you here. Okay, so this is the button click. Okay, so from here this data will go to here. Okay, through this though. Okay, from here the data will go to here. Okay, and from here the data will go to here. And okay, so this is particularly this is the method it will be called when this this output is triggered. Okay, and now from here it will show, so this is just increment, this will increment the vote here. Okay, and it will be showed into the UI. So this is the flow. So interestingly, this part actually is different in the sense, like the parent component will listen, okay, to this event from the child component, and when it is triggered, that time parent component will operate on data and put it into the UI. So this is the fourth one is very much different than other three, other first, second and third. But yeah, this is gonna be useful when you need some kind of interactions from child component, and that interaction will will affect the parent component's data. So that time this is going to be useful. Let me show you the output of it, and it will be more meaningful when you see it. So it is the output of fourth mechanism when we want to establish communication between two components. And you can see, like, this is the like this data, these buttons are coming from the child component, so we can click on this button, and then this will update the vote here. This vote is actually getting printed from parent components, and also this vote is coming from the child component. So this way actually parent component is listening from child component's event. The fifth way of communication between two components can be parent interacts with a child component via local variable. For that, I'm going to create a folder called local variable, and inside that I'll have two components, deer counter child and tiger parent. These two components will communicate. In this part of component communication, parent will listen to the child via a local variable. Okay, parent will communicate the child's components data through local variable. So how it will happen? For example, you can see this is the parent component. Here the parent component class won't access the data from the child component, but the data can be accessed through the template. So this is the HTML part. Here I have mentioned the child component like template name, yeah, selector name from here to here, and you have noticed that this one is new. So I created a local variable in the HTML here. The variable name is foreign counter, and how I create the variable, I just added one hash before that, and this become a variable which will give the gateway to the variable and methods present in child component, which is this one, right? So this child components methods and variable can be accessed in this HTML through this variable. Yeah, and this variable, how we can access, now you can see easily, like this variable and this method, okay, add a dear to my list. So for example, I use this variable here and dot, I give this method name, which is child components method, right? And now I am accessing this from the parent components template. This is the parent components template, right? So let me draw it. Parent component template, this is child component template, right? Then see, I'm accessing the dears count from child component to child component template here, right? And I am incrementing this value using this method, which is child components method. I am incrementing that value from parent components template. This is, so this button will present in parent component. This button will be triggered and it will automatically, using this variable, it will automatically access this from here, okay, and it will increment this data and this data will show into the UI. So this is the flow. Here the parent components class is not getting involved, okay. Let me show you the result. Okay, so the result is this button is present in the parent components template. This HTML value is coming from the child components. So I am clicking on the button of the parent components template, and using that variable it is getting incremented, right? So this is another interesting way of creating communication between two components. The sixth way of establishing communication between two components is view child. Okay, for that I am creating a new folder called view child. Inside that I am going to create two components, cats parent, mouse counter. Okay, this is kind of same as the previous one, which is accessing the child components variable and methods through some variable from parent component. But it is bit interesting in a way, like this time it is not the template but the class of the parent component, which will access the all the variables and method of the child component. So how it is gonna use that, you can see this is the view child. So using this view child decorator, it will access the child component. Okay, it will inject the child component here, and that child component is assigned to a variable now, and this variable will give access to all the methods and properties of the child component. So you can see this time I'm counting, like not me, the cat is counting the rat. Okay, so cat is the parent component and rat is the child component. So the counter is the child component, and we is counting, that counting method is the parent component. So here this counting method is present in the parent component, and the value which is gonna be counted, it is mouses. So that is present in the child component, that is getting print from the child component to child component template. But the counter button, the button for counting this mouse variable, is present in the parent components template. So this way, if you see, this is the parent component, okay, this is the child component. Okay, so how the operation will go, for example, button will be triggered from here. Okay, button will be triggered. Okay, counter red button, and this is the mouse needs to be counted. So how this mouse access will be coming? This is coming from this. So this is actually injected here. So this is here, right? And this variable is coming from here. It is getting incremented, right? And after incremented, this value will be like by clicking 1 times it will be 1, and then this one will be displaying in the UI. So this way actually the parent component will get access to all the variables and methods of the child's component inside the class. So the 5th one is inside the template, 6th one is inside the class. Now let's see the output. Here you can see the 6th way is parent component calls and view child. So this button is present in the parent component. This value is coming from this mouse count value is coming from the child component. So I am incrementing that. The 7th way of establishing communication between two components is really interesting and very much used. So this mechanism is called establishing component communication through services. So using service mechanism, here we are actually separating the concern of each of the component by the service, which is the external entity than these two components. So this case we are introducing a third party which will manage the communication between two components, being the outsider, and this will really help to capture the concept of separation of concern, right? For this I have created one folder called using service. Inside that folder I have created two components called mission board and mission controller. Okay, these two components will communicate with each other. Hey everyone, I am planning to bring more and more videos on intermediate level and more important topics. Please do subscribe this channel. If you like this video, please share it with your friends, and do let me know in the comments like what I can do better, I can improve. To create communication between two components using services, I needed to create service. So I have created service module. So you can see this is the service named mission service. So using this class, I will establish communication between two components called mission board and mission controller. So in this file I have already created the some of the methods called announce mission and confirm mission. So announce mission will be responsible for creating mission, like mission for the people, and confirm mission will be interacting with that mission from the people side. So this is actually creating the communication between both the side, from parent and from the child component, and both the side will interact with the service layer, and in this layer the data will be manipulated using these methods. This is the parent component called mission controller. This is the parent component's template. This is the child component called mission board, and this is the child component's template. Now in this case we are gonna use the my mission service, okay, via this providers. This provider will inject the mission service into this component, and it will help to establish the communication via this service. As we remember that the mission service has two methods called announce mission and also the confirm mission. These two methods actually operating on top of the data but the operation is happening on the outside, which is the service, right? So this this button here, this button announce will trigger the service of announcement, okay, and it will take the mission data from this components body, and also the confirm mission is actually being triggered from the mission board, which is a child component, but the operation will happen in the mission service. So that this is actually written into the mission service. So that this is going to call the mission service confirmation method, and that is going to be called from the UI, which is a template of the child component. So in this way, this entire operation, the like mission announcement, mission confirmation, so this operation is actually happening outside of the scope, but this confirmation and then announcement is like linking this to different component via this outsider, which is the service. So I'll create another video probably explaining the service and dependency injection and all the important part connecting that. But this is the extended example of how we can use the service, which is the outside element, and we can take leverage of that and inject it, and then we can share the data from here to here, those two different components. Let me show you the result of this flow, so you can have some idea. So here you can see the result, where from the parent component button I can announce a mission. This will take the data from parent component and announce first data of the parent component and announce a mission. And now you can see this is the user, this is the confirmer, so each confirmer can confirm, okay, and that information is going to transfer to the UI via the child component, and then this will be printed. So you can see like the confirm button is present in the present in the child component, okay, and the announce button is present in the parent component. So this way actually both the components are seamlessly working together on top of the data, which is actually being handled by the outsider, which is the service. Thank you for watching this big video. Thank you so much.